Despite the facade of being a hip, supportive teacher, Mr. Jefferson might not be as cool as he seems. At the beginning of the game, Mr. Jefferson is teaching a class to his students. Body language is often a thing that's overlooked, but means a lot. You will notice that his body and focus is completely cut off from the male students. He is facing his body to most of the female students in the class, and is directly facing Max specifically. There is something he says to the class that is very important, but I'll get back to that later. First, let's take a look at his photography. Artistic expression can often reveal a lot about the artist. I've said before that I noticed the majority of his photography is of young women, and yes, that can be seen as normal in real life, but this game is centered around photography, so the importance of giant photographs everywhere is valid. So let's take a closer look. Here is a picture of one of his few non-woman featured subjects, an officer looming over another. It is dark, it is oppressing, it is dominant. The officer takes up the majority of the shot and stands over the lesser subject. Now let's look at this picture featuring a female subject. She is partially dressed and looks down and away. She is vulnerable and submissive while also being photographed in a sexual tone. There is also a masculine hand in the shot on her shoulder. She is also holding what appears to be a toy rabbit, but it could really be anything, honestly. If you take a look at his other female subjects, they are all dressed in a way in which their clothes seem messy and disheveled. They are also in dirty, industrial warehouse settings. None of them smile or seem happy. So the question is, does Mr. Jefferson relate to his female subjects and their vulnerability, or does he relate to the dominant figures that he photographs? As you can see, the themes of Mr. Jefferson's photography are dominance and sexuality of youth. These are the things that Mr. Jefferson thinks about.
Seriously though, I could frame any one of you in a dark corner, capture you in a moment of desperation. And any one of you could do that to me.
I messed up the rest of the recording, but this is what he says word for word after that. Isn't that too easy? Too obvious? What if Arbus chose to capture people at the height of their beauty and innocence? So Mr. Jefferson likes beautiful and innocent things. Notice how I call Mark Jefferson Mr. Jefferson. I call him that because we play as Max. To Max, Mr. Jefferson is in a role of authority as a teacher. He is in charge of his young students. I would also like to note that Kate has been his assistant for the last few weeks. Despite the confusion about Rachel Amber's appearance, Kate is actually the one who looks the most like her. If you actually read her description, you will find that Rachel has blonde hair and hazel eyes. I didn't really believe it at first, but it does seem like Mr. Jefferson and Rachel Amber had a relationship of sorts. Her professional photographs are similar to Mr. Jefferson's style. Stella says that they had sex.
You have a lot to learn here at Blackwell. Rachel Amber absolutely had sex with him. Well, I heard that from a good source.
I didn't really want to believe her at first because it seemed like such a bullshit story. There's a letter in Chloe's special place from Rachel to Chloe talking about how Rachel found someone who is wise and unconventional, who she had sex with. Rachel wants to be a model. Mr. Jefferson is a successful photographer. Mr. Jefferson says that he misses Rachel.
Rachel Amber? What does she have to do with Kate?
With all her missing persons posters around, it's hard not to think of her.
I miss Rachel too. But think about yourself, Max.
Which is circumstantial out of context, but with the other pieces of evidence, it seems relevant. So it seems like Mr. Jefferson had a sexual relationship with Rachel, and he may have been trying to seek one with Kate. However, Kate obviously refused any subtle hints he may have laid down. I can't help but hear resentment when you try to talk to him about Kate.
What if Kate brought this on herself? She means well, but maybe she doth protest too much.
This is a quote from the Shakespeare play, Hamlet. The lady doth protest too much, methinks. It's supposed to mean that when someone repeatedly says something is true, it makes others think it is false. This means multiple things. Mr. Jefferson is an asshole who doesn't believe Kate when she insists on telling him the truth. He genuinely believes that Kate wanted to do all those things in the video, and that she enjoyed it. This also means he has a core belief to think that a protest means the opposite of a protest. To not believe his female students when they insist that they did not want to do something. This is important to note, that if you insist upon something to Mr. Jefferson, His assumption is that you mean the opposite. I just get this gut feeling like he was jealous of Kate kissing the other boys instead of concerned that she was drugged and none of it was consensual. So if we add all this up, he has a long history of having young female models. He had Rachel model for him and probably had a sexual relationship with her, and Kate was his assistant for the last few weeks. Does it make sense that all those photo albums were made by him? All the names on the labels are female names. Rachel's name is on there, and Kate is the newest album. Note that something bad happened to Kate after the party that she can barely recall. All she knows is that she got a prick on her neck. All those albums could be Mr. Jefferson's portfolios for his formal models and student assistants. I'm not saying he's the killer. There may be more than one bad thing happening in Arcadia Bay. There are other people on my mind for having done bad things. I also think him being the bad guy is just too obvious. They can't have revealed that much so early, so maybe he's a red herring. I still think he's gross though.